So let's sit nice and tall and close the eyes. And just feel yourself arriving at this time, in this moment, at this place. Notice what you are noticing. Notice what you are aware of. Within yourself, around, throughout. Notice what you are not aware of. What you are not noticing. Within, around, and throughout. Understanding that you are only seeing some things. You are only noticing some things. Therefore, nothing you see or sense is the entire truth. Keeping our hearts and minds open to always engaging a more complete truth. Allow that to be our intention for this satsang today. Drawing the hands together in front of the heart. We'll lift our voices in one Om. Take a breath in. Om. Releasing the hands, fluttering the eyes open. And I'll share with you a poem called Hidden. What lies inside, waiting to be discovered, a journey to the soul, the only way to know for sure, the cold chill of a bittersweet failure versus the sweet sensation of success. Both escape those of us who could care less or cry more about anything at all, but nothing comes in a reluctant flow of grace. Only when we succumb to what brings us closer to knowing that the sun is beyond the clouds and stars are hidden beyond the view of the naked eye. Love is only love if it is free to come and leave as it chooses. What lies hidden away is the truth, waiting for the day when it will be revealed. And then the hearts will heal, and then the hearts will sing freely. This concept of the hidden is huge. We walk through this life with eyes usually open. We think. And we see whatever's in front of us. We see the clouds, the tree, the leaves on the ground, the colors of this carpet, the people that have assembled here today. We see certain things. And we think that that's the truth. We think just because we saw it, it makes it true. Some part of it may be true, but not the entirety of it. And it is in and of itself not the entire truth. It's only a perspective, an opinion, a possibility. In order to see the truth, we would have to open our third eye, which energetically in this physical body is here between the eyebrows, but spiritually is somewhere where it is capable of seeing all, knowing all, and avoiding none. So I kind of look at it from a Twilight Zone perspective, like there's a big eye out there somewhere in the far, far reaches of the universe, and it can see everything, without exception. Therefore, it knows the truth. If you play with that for a moment, if your sense of sight is that eye at the far reaches of the universe, situated in such a place where it can see everything, then in your human embodiment right now with these two physical eyes, what are you not seeing? Within your own life, within your own being, within your own understanding of yourself, what are you not looking at? Not recognizing, not accepting. For myself personally, that's a huge question. Because my life in these 50 some odd years has been full of looking only at that, only at that, only at that. There's only been a handful of occasions where I've willingly looked at all of it, sat back and became so both awed and overwhelmed that I, on some human level, decided to go back to that, or that, or that. The Bhagavad Gita addresses this directly. Chapter 4, I believe it is. Arjuna says to Krishna, you talk about living all these lives like you've been around forever. You talk about things that we remember, but I don't remember these things. How is it that you remember these things? And Krishna tells him, well, I've been here before and so have you. The only difference is I remember and you don't. And then Krishna implies to Arjuna that he remembers because he is the Godhead and because he is pure of heart and he doesn't prefer this existence over any other. And Krishna and Arjuna have this beautiful conversation, and Arjuna turns to Krishna and says, okay, I get it. There's something about you, and I see that and I feel that, but I don't see you. I only see your human form. I want to see who you really are. So show me your true form. In other words, let me see the whole picture. Krishna says, sure. And he shows Arjuna the truth of himself. Who Krishna really is, what he really is. He showed him his power, his light, his eternity. And Arjuna was both awed and overwhelmed in that moment. And it says in certain interpretations, he fell back and he said, thank you, but could you go back to a simpler form? I'd like to only see that for a while. Because that big truth is so big that my human senses can't even begin to handle it. So let's take this one step at a time. That is what it is to be human, is to take things one part at a time. But that's not, being human and having limited senses is not enough of a reason to not continually expand our view every moment that we are alive. So that it's not just that, it's that and a little bit more. And it's that and a little bit more. And it's that and a little bit more. And it's that and its relationship to that. And it's that and its relationship to that. And it's consistently more and more and more. And if we're consistent enough in our practice of expanding our perception and our understanding, then something very special can happen. And all of a sudden we find ourselves looking at a much, much larger picture and understanding inherently the truth that that picture holds. And over time, given a consistent practice, a straightforward willingness to do the self-study, to be the witness, to release the grasping, we become awed, yes, but less overwhelmed by the truth, less threatened by it, less resistant to it. And in that moment, we just bow down to it. And we say, in this human form, I'm greatly limited. Or at least I think I am. So I'll accept the truth is there. And I'll see it in a greater entirety as I can. And I'll keep working toward that. I'll keep working to diminish my fear. I'll keep working to diminish my unhealthy ego. I'll keep working to diminish my grasping at the things that I desire for the sake of this truth that in my heart I know exists, but is typically beyond my comprehension. And that's the path. And we came here for the retreat attendees. We came here this weekend to talk about self-care. And we talked about, we practiced the Abhyanga, the wonderful way of putting oil on the body. We did the relaxation practices. We talked about self-perception and all these other things. But when it comes down to it, the greatest self-care is acknowledging the truth. Because as the old saying goes, the truth is what sets you free. The truth is what brings you the greatest sense of contentment, the greatest sense of okayness, the greatest sense of purpose, and the greatest degree of self-acceptance that you will ever experience. As long as we're in denial of some aspect of the truth, self-acceptance is going to be a burden to accomplish. Compassion is going to be a burden. It'll always be a slippery slope. We'll be struggling to get up that slope and sliding back down again. Because we're living on slippery rocks and on slippery ground where we would like to believe that we have a footing, we have a root that holds us down. But that root is only as strong as our faith and as our practice. So if our faith crumbles and our practice moves away from us, then we find ourselves in a mudslide. And before we know it, we're all the way at the bottom of the hill again, looking only at that. And for such a little part of this big, big picture, that had a lot of power. It's got the power to keep me chained, to keep you chained into something that is so insignificant in the larger picture. And yet we look at it and think it defines us and defines our life. This is what meditation is for. This is what your yoga asana practice, your pranayama practice is for. This is what studying the scriptures is for. This is what arati is for. This is what all of spiritual practice is, going to church. It's so that we can get out of the headspace of that little tiny thing controlling me and defining my life. And we can come into a larger, more humble place of recognizing I don't have all the answers. And I potentially never will. Not as long as I'm existing on this slippery slope of misunderstanding and misdirection and misappropriation of energy. For as long as I'm existing on that slippery slope, I'm going to keep sliding back. And it's not negative. It's okay. That's the human condition. There's something to learn when you are sliding back down and trying to make your way back up again. There's something to learn there about resiliency and about willpower and about the necessity of staying focused. I love when I've been working with students for years, and they will come back to me after I haven't seen them for a while, and they'll come back with, that was the one thing that one of them said. So this one student in particular was with me for like 7 years, and I talk a lot about the Bhagavad Gita and a lot about Patanjali Yoga Sutras and all these things. She went on vacation or something, decided to move somewhere far away. She came back for a visit. When she came back for a visit, she said, I started practicing at this little place. She was in California, I think. She said, and there's this book that they study there called the Bhagavad Gita. Sudha, you should read it. I said, I'll have to give that a try. It doesn't matter how many times you hear something. The only thing that matters is the moment you get it. It doesn't matter how many times we sat down with that book in hand, talking about Krishna and Arjuna. What matters is that there came a moment where she got it and became interested in it and intrigued by it and decided that she was going to pick it up and actually take it seriously, like more seriously, emphatically seriously. And I'm happy for her because of that. Certainly there's a part of the ego that says, well, wait a minute, we've been talking about this for like 5 or 7 years. Were you not listening? But we got to put that part away and just say, it wasn't time. It wasn't time. There might have been other people in attendance. It was time, But for her, it was something else. And that's fine. Because maybe everything she heard during that time that she was studying with me was setting a foundation so she could open. Right? Maybe every time you take care of yourself, you're setting a foundation where you become empowered to look at this bigger picture rather than just that one little thing. Or you're setting a foundation where you can look at that and see more honestly its limitations and then expand your view a little bit. And not become overwhelmed so much by it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Spirituality is big. It's not one quote from any teacher. Spirituality is huge. It's not 1 second of 1 minute in time. Spirituality is so big. It's not about our satisfaction, getting our desires fulfilled. Spirituality is so friggin' enormous that it is completely hidden from our senses until it's not. And the bridge between those two places of hidden and revealed are practice, and more practice. That's what the bridge is between what is hidden from us and what's revealed to us. Yogi Bhajan was known for saying, he was the founder of the modern-day Kundalini lineage. And in the Kundalini practice, they do things repetitively. 54 of this, 108 of that. It's a very powerful practice. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, he said, you have to be mindful. You don't raise that Kundalini before it's time. Because if the practitioner isn't ready for that power, when that Kundalini raises up, the top of the head will blow off. The first few times that I heard that, I laughed because all I saw was like in my mind, brains everywhere. That's not what he meant, though. And I knew that's not what he meant. What he meant was that if you try to grab hold of this power too quickly, and your body and mind and nervous system particularly are not prepared for it, then your nervous system will become fried and you'll lose a little bit of your sanity. That's what he meant. It's the same thing with the whole truth. You have to prepare yourself on some level for it spiritually. Otherwise, it's too overwhelming. And then we end up losing a little bit of our sanity because it becomes some thing that has to sit up on a shelf out of our reach because it's just too all-encompassing. Spirituality can be like that too. You do a little bit here, a little bit there. You got to learn what feels right inside, what doesn't feel right inside. You've got to take time to be a witness, to see. So you can see with these human eyes, and you can see that there are cookies on that counter. One in particular that says Swamini's cookie. Right? There's a truth to that. There sure is. But if that's the only thing that I ever use these eyes to see, well, what a waste, right? I mean, it's a sweet waste, but it's a waste. I need to open my eyes more profoundly so that I can see that those cookies can bring pleasure and happiness to others as well, not just me. To open my eyes profoundly to see that there are things that bring people joy and there are things that bring people suffering. Open my eyes more profoundly to see the power of compassion to alleviate suffering. Open my eyes to witness what it is when a child who's been crying receives comfort, when an adult who's been crying receives comfort, when a person or a being of any species has been suffering and then comes into some state of healing. To witness that journey and recognize the truth of it. That, yes, suffering is very inherent in this human condition. It's undeniable, no matter who denies it. It's not deniable. There's no person alive who has never suffered. There's also no person alive who has not healed on some level, to some degree, some part of their human onion. Maybe they healed their relationship with a parent or a loved one or an enemy. Maybe they healed a little bit of their relationship with themselves. So suffering is not the whole truth. It's only a small part of the truth. Because healing is also part of the truth. So we sit back and we witness so that we can see more and more and more of this truth and begin to condition our body, our mind, our senses, which are typically out of control, our nervous system and the other systems of the body, to see more and more of the truth without feeling like we have to crawl into a cave and hide under a rock somewhere because we're so afraid. Students often ask, they say, well, if I abide by like the yamas and the niyamas, and if I come into this yoga, then I can't have the things that I really like. Who told you that? Who told you that? You're not a renunciate. You're a householder. It's not for you to turn your back on the world. It's for you to step more fully awake into it. So that those things that bring you joy, you know why they're bringing you joy. And you also understand that they can bring you suffering too. And then you have right relationship with them. I don't want to leave my husband and my family. Why do you think you have to? Maybe stepping more profoundly into your spiritual practices will allow you to be what we could call a better partner, a better parent, a more profound part of those relationships, because you'll be less harmful and more loving, less harmful and more compassionate, less denying and more accepting. You know? And yoga is not about, even when you do take vows of renunciation, the renunciation is particular to the person. You know, it's particular to the person, the way that they view it. And there's definitely individuals out there, sadhus, who renounce the world. They go off and live in a cave. Swami Shraddhananda, the founder of the lineage or the order that I belong to, said, what a waste. I mean, be thankful for them, be grateful for them, for the study that they have done, because it's taught us so much. But really, what good is that in the world if you're going to take that wisdom and go live in a cave somewhere with it? You've got to take that wisdom into the world. And then wear the white, wear the saffron, wear the mix of colors, wear whatever you want to wear. Make the vows that your heart calls you to make. But above all, be the difference in the world. Swami Shivananda said, feed all, love all, harm none. And then the Hard Rock Cafe borrowed that as their logo. That's a quote from Swami Shivananda. Some people think that that's a quote from like John Lennon or somebody, but or George Harrison. No, that's Swami Shivananda. And some people say, well, no, that was this other Maharaj. It's like, no, Swami Shivananda, born in the 1800s. Yeah. And he's the one who stated that. And then it went out from there. Bless you. Bless you. Maybe he got some portion of that from his teacher, but his teacher is very elusive, and while we know his name, we don't know very much else about him. But we do know that he was an aesthetic yogi. He was not a yogi of the world necessarily. Swami Shivananda was a yogi in the world. When he took his vows of renunciation, he came more deeply into relationship with people. He created a free hospital so that the poor in the area of Rishikesh could receive all the medical care that they needed and not have to worry about paying for it. He created all kinds of services for humanity because his vows of renunciation freed him profoundly so that he could come into a deeper service of those who are suffering, aka everybody. So yoga is not about turning your back on the people you love or your community and going and living in a cave somewhere. I mean, it can be if that's what you choose. But again, paraphrasing the great swamis, many great swamis, that doesn't serve the purpose of the end of suffering. I also am very compelled towards Swami Nirmalananda. Swami Nirmalananda was lovingly known as the silent yogi or the silent guru. He's from South India, and his vow was 11 or 12 years of silence. Because he said, if I can't speak only the truth, then I have nothing worth saying. So I will say nothing. Can you imagine that? Like, he is very capable of speaking, but chooses not to for 11 years. His disciples got really upset and went to him and said, you have to give us satsang. You can't just not speak. So he said 15 minutes a month. 15 minutes every month, you come, you sit, and that's it. Then I go back to silence. And he made that sacrifice for them so they could hear something. So their senses could be fed with something that included a larger truth. So the truth is hidden. The truth of why we are supposed to care for ourselves is hidden. And then self-care becomes a practice of things like having a martini, getting a pedicure, going away on vacation. The martini is not self-care, period. The pedicure is also not really self-care. It's got a component to it. It's like looking at that little dot on the carpet and saying that's the whole carpet. No. If you go to the pedicure with the intention of truly taking care of yourself, and you understand, what working with the feet actually means, and the pressure points in the bottom of the foot, and you don't put chemicals in the water because you know that you absorb everything very quickly into the organs of the body through the bottom of the feet. And then you don't go and abuse your feet afterward. Then maybe it's a little bit more than one strand of yarn in an entire carpet of truth. But generally speaking, it's a desirous experience that's enjoyable, period. There is some help there for the nervous system, absolutely. It's better to have enjoyment than to have suffering. But not if you're going to follow the pedicure up with something else that's twice as harmful. See what I'm saying? Yeah. And the going on vacation is not self-care, unless you're actually on vacation, right? Typically, what happens when you come home from vacation? oh my gosh, I put so much in that vacation, I need a vacation from my vacation. Well, that was a silly waste of energy then. You may have had fun, but fun does not equate to self-care. As a matter of fact, fun can be very detrimental because it takes your energy away from you to the point where you feel like you're drained. To the point where when you come back from that vacation that was supposed to be all about self-care, you sit there and say, oh, I really wish we could have got that in. I wish we could have got that in. I wish we would have done that. You're not appreciating the vacation at all. You're just talking about what you wish you could have done. But you did all these other great things anyway that get swept under a rug, you know. You did these other great things instead, which get swept under a rug in comparison to the things you could have done. That's not self-care. That's just more battering of yourself. That's more self-harm. That's more comparison. Does that make sense? Yeah. So next time you want to go on vacation, don't plan anything. Just find out where you end up and be there. Period. And don't compare it to anything else. And leave the woulda, shoulda, couldas behind and just have a pure experience. When we went to India, we didn't have any plans except for what we went there for. And we had the most amazing, crazy experiences. Probably because we had no expectations. Each person had kind of like one thing they really wanted to do. But other than that, everything was pretty much up in the air. It just really depended on Swamiji's, schedule, because I needed to be accessible to him for that. And then for the ritual for Ed, and yeah. When we can be present, we see more. Less is hidden and more is revealed. But when we're trying to cram all the truth into 5 days, 10 days, 12 days vacation, we're trying to learn everything about Mexico, everything about Puerto Vallarta, everything about wherever you end up going on vacation. Well, that's really silly, because then you won't see anything. You're going so fast. I have a friend, she does all of these excursions, and bless her soul, she and her husband have been around the world, but they do so much. She invited me one time. She was like, you should come. I said, that's way too fast for me. It's like, a destination, at least one destination, like almost every day, and maybe 3 destinations in one day, and you get an hour, and then you better get back. And so the whole time is spent like stressed out about getting back. When we went to Mexico, we did one of those tours. They took us down to the ruins, and I just wanted to rent a car and go, but my beloved wanted to take the bus as part of the tour, so we did. And really, so fast, boom, boom, boom. You get just kind of a small perspective, and then you think that's the truth. That's not the truth. That's the tour guide telling you where to go, and what to see, and how to see it. You want to see it, then just walk. Be with the local indigenous people. Sit down and have tea with them. Talk to them, hear their stories. Don't be in a rush. Does that make sense? The less of a rush you're in, the more truth you'll see. Because you'll be more in a mode of witnessing and less in a mode of trying to get things done. It's like that in the office also. Any corporate office. Everybody is in such a rush to try to get things done that no one's actually seeing what's happening in the office. People are distracted. They say, well, I'm not going to pay attention to any of that because I got to do this, 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 this. And one of the number one complaints by employees is that they feel they're not seen. They feel they're not seen, and they're not a lot of the time. When you're in a chaotic environment where everything is about the goal, which might be over there somewhere, And no one's paying attention to what's happening. No one's paying attention to the fact that, Sarah's grandmother died. So-and-so's dog had to go to the vet. So-and-so's, upset because their child is suffering, being bullied in school. None of this is being witnessed because the only truth that's being touted is that goal right over there. We got to slow down and start being witnesses to what's actually going on. Hopefully this is all coming together in your relationship. In any relationship. But let's just say love relationship. What's the goal there? The goal is not to get the other person to say I love you and to make me happy. But yet that's primarily the goal we go for. We have a healthy relationship. He gives me what I want. She gives me what I want. She gives me what I need. He gives me what I need. That's not a good relationship. That's a self-centered perspective on what a relationship should be. A healthy relationship is when you see clearly the condition of your partner and you have compassion. And you want to share in whatever is happening in the moment. And there may be some little goals about the future down the line, whatever. But that's the second priority, because the first priority is to be in this moment together. And to just experience the presence of each other in a greater light of truth. Yet a lot of times when we get into romantic relationships, we're like, well, if you would only do that, if you would only do that, if you would only go there, if you would only get that job, if you would only dress this way, if you would only act that way. If you can't be happy with the person the way they are right now in this moment, then you're not going to be happy with them no matter what they do. Because you're always going to have in your mind now what you think you've witnessed. That this person is a certain way. They made me unhappy. You got to clean your mind of that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Just accept people for who they are. And if they're not the person that you want to be with, then why are you with them? You're only going to resent them if you try to change them into some mold or model that you think they should fit. That's not to say that people shouldn't grow and expand. Of course they should. And they will, because that's life. And it's not to say that people shouldn't work to make themselves into better people. It would be really nice if everybody did that. But that's not the question at hand. The question at hand is, are you? Are you? It's very easy to point fingers at other people and say, you need to change, you need to change, you need to change. Are we actively becoming a deeper, more profound witness of a more complete truth? Or is our head still stuck 3 feet into the sand? And we're just blaming everybody else for it because we don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to address what's lost or what we feel is lost. Questions? Comments, reflections?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
One of the questions that you posed to me earlier in the week was like, based on our conversation, what truth it was I was seeking, and of course I contemplated that a lot. But the truth that I was seeking is the one that I believe to be true.
Mm-hmm.
So if then out of someone else's mouth comes what I believe to be true, that I validate it. When really I don't know the truth. I mean, the truth is I just need to let it up. So thank you. And then you just put it into a beautiful perspective there. I'm looking at that one spot, focused on that one spot, and I can't let it go. But I need to look at the whole beautiful rug, but really just sweep that spot away. So thank you.
Absolutely, you're welcome. Thank you for doing your work. Any other thoughts or reflections? Yes?
I'm wondering if I'm only looking at the one spot and I'm not seeing the greater picture when I'm wondering if maybe I just don't see it, but how, when I crave unconditional love from people who are unable to give it to me, how is it that I'm able to make peace with that?
You're seeing one spot on the rug, for sure. Yeah. So let's look at that in a couple of stages. There's many, many stages to look at that in, but we'll look at it in maybe 2 or 3. First of all, to acknowledge to yourself that what you're craving is unconditional love. That's a huge step. You understand that you're craving. You understand what a craving is. And you understand that you can name your craving unconditional love. So, a craving is an addiction. And an addiction is typically something that we are trying to get from outside of ourselves. Whether it's unconditional love or money or drugs or alcohol or clothing or sex, whatever it happens to be, it's typically something that we're reaching for. So right then and there, we can look at the Bhagavad Gita and we can look at the Bible, we can look at any text, and it will say to us, whatever you reach for outside of yourself is not the truth. So that you're craving unconditional love from outside of yourself, that unconditional love is not possible. And it's not. No matter how much someone says they love you, even a mother's love to a child is not unconditional. I've had so many conversations about that. I have children. My love for my children, I love them with all my heart and soul. But my love has not been unconditional. Because there have been 10,000 times in their life where I have expected them to clean their room. I have expected them to do well in school. I have expected them not to lie to me. That's not unconditional. Unconditional means I expect nothing of you. Which brings me to the second kind of stage that we can look at this in. I'm expecting unconditional love from outside of me, but am I giving it? Oh. Uh-oh. What's that mean? Well, it means that you get what you give. So, if I want to receive unconditional love, then I need to give unconditional love. And what's that look like? No expectations of any kind whatsoever, including no expectation of anyone else to conform to my expectation of receiving unconditional love. So where does that bring me to? If I can't expect unconditional love in return for unconditional love, then why the hell would I unconditionally love anybody? Because spiritually we do this amount of work that brings us to a place where we understand that to love conditionally causes us suffering. To love unconditionally doesn't. But we still don't tend to see the value in that. And so we bombard our love with conditions. Or we say, I want you to love me unconditional. But we're not willing to give the same back. So those are kind of a couple of different ways that we can look at it. And then the third thing that we can do, and then I'll get to your comment, is we can say, well, I understand that I'm craving unconditional love, and I understand that that's not real. Not really. Not in this human form, in this moment in time. Therefore, what can I ask for that is less false and more real? Maybe we can just ask for a conversation about expectations. And maybe that will bring us closer to being able to accept others as they are a little more. Yes?
I was just going to say, I guess I think that unconditional love is impossible from a human because we're so flawed. I mean, I can see, like, we can accept it from our higher beings, because what you were saying before about the all-seeing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, are there really people that are able to
I don't think so.
Okay.
I've not met one. I haven't met one. I like to believe that my guru is a very awakened person, but I've seen him angry. So I think that when we look at awakened people, beings, these, Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh, I think that their love is more profoundly unconditional, in that they let go of their anger much faster and their disappointment much faster. And they have the ability to recognize almost immediately, that anger and disappointment stems from within themselves. And they have the skill to self-correct and come back to that place of love. But I think that it's still a process. I think their process is way beyond ours, for whatever, blessed reason that is. But I think that there is always a process, and the Buddha even said that. He said, as long as we are embodied in physical form, we should never fool ourselves into thinking that we have attained some level of perfection. Because as long as we're physical, we are susceptible to the gunas of nature. We're susceptible to the changing weather patterns. And like we talked the other day, some people like the gray clouds, some people like the blue sky. The person who likes the blue sky suffers because of the gray clouds. The person who likes the gray clouds suffers because of the blue sky. Those are the gunas, the changing qualities of nature. As long as we're embodied and we have these five senses, or any number of these five senses that are functioning, we're taking in those preferences. We're taking those in and we're saying, I like the blue sky. I'm going to try not to like the blue sky. But I like the blue sky. I like those cookies. I'm going to try not to like those cookies. But I like those cookies. I like pizza. I'm going to try not to like pizza. But I still like pizza. We're human. We're not perfect. Unconditional love is out of our reach. But that doesn't mean it's not worth
working towards.
Right.
Looking forward to being more open and present moment.
Completely. Yeah.
This is a good question. But,
Talk just a little bit louder.
Oh, sure. I'm just looking for answers again, but in terms of living a full-fledged life, is it necessary to have a relationship or find that person or have that person find you, or is it necessary that you can have children to live a full-fledged life?
No, not at all. It's not necessary to find someone to be your partner. It's not necessary to have children. It's not necessary to have a career. It's not necessary to have anything to live a full-fledged life. Except for one thing: to be happy. To accept your life as it is. That's the only thing that's necessary to live a full-fledged life, is to accept your life as it is. You don't have to worry about looking for anything. All you need to do is be in this moment. I've been very blessed in my life, where I found my ideal partner found. I don't know what that word means. My ideal partner and I encountered each other. Fell in love, got married, and had 28 wonderful years together. If that was the requirement for my ideal life, then I'm not living my ideal life anymore because he's no longer here. And that's not true, because I'm still living my ideal life, because I'm exactly where I am meant to be. So if we can look at it from a place of everything that comes to us is a blessing, so let's just accept the blessing and have the experience, and then let the experience go if it needs to go, stay if it needs to stay. Don't sink claws into it. Don't hang it on meat hooks. Yeah. And then what we find is that there's a little more space in ourselves to enjoy this moment as it is. But we're human. So just because I said or another person says to you, no, you don't have to have a relationship, you don't have to have children. If you're not called to that, you're not called to that. You're still going to question it, because that's the psyche. The psyche says, but what if they're wrong? But the heart says, well, I'm happy the way I am. I don't need to complicate things by trying to collect things I don't need. But if you feel one day when you encounter someone, oh, there's something here telling me we should walk together for a while, then just walk alongside each other for a while and see what happens. And if it doesn't go in one direction, then it will go in another, because there's 10,000 directions, and you will follow one of them. And if you're not called to have children, then you're not called to have children. There's so many children in this world that don't have active parents. And there's so many people in this world who have a wounded inner child. Be a mother to all of them. Every one of them. That's all. Just be a mother to everybody. What does that mean? You don't get stepped on. Being a mother is not about being a doormat. Being a mother is about just loving and having compassion and not harming, nurturing, being clear, being straightforward, saying things the way that you see things, as long as it's not harmful. I see right where you're going wrong. This is what you need to do to fix yourself. No. Have you thought about this? If this is causing you so much suffering, have you considered this? We don't fix anybody as mothers. We empower people. And that's men too, because men also have that divine feminine inside of them. So the ideal life is just the life that you're present to, and that you accept it for what it is. And that you are maybe called to deepen your spiritual inquiry and continually come closer to a place of greater understanding of the truth of that. Yeah. I hope that's helpful. Supportive. I don't like the word help. Supportive. Any other thoughts today? Yes?
When you were talking about unconditional love, and how it's so difficult for us to even think that we could be that way, I was picturing the sun coming up every day, and that's unconditional to all of us. And comparing, it brought me to tears, I don't know why, but that's such, to think about getting to a spot where you could be like the sun, where you just shine, regardless of what someone's done, and you know that there's really bad things that people do, and the sun comes out and shines on them. And not that I don't do bad things too, I'm not putting myself like that, but there's
There's a beautiful mantra. It's called the Surya Namaskara. And in the yoga practices, there's something called a Surya Namaskar, which is a sun salutation. And this mantra, it thanks the sun for being a good friend. It thanks the sun for constantly shining its warmth and its light. It thanks the sun for being radiant. It thanks the sun for all these different qualities, you know. And the reason for that is because the sun holds the qualities of that unconditionality that we seek as spiritualists to be able to express as well. Now, when we say love, when we talk about unconditional love, we're not talking about human love. We're talking about divine love. The sun is not human. The sun is a sacred source of light, and the sky is a cosmic body. So we could say that its impartiality is what allows it to shine with the same vibrancy, without discrimination. That leads us to understand that on our spiritual path, impartiality is very important. Equanimity, sameness. I see you, the same as I see you, same as I see you. The same as I see you. The same. Sama. Sama. Sam. The same love. And we don't put one up on a high pedestal and one down in the mud. We have everybody at the same place. No one is elevated over anyone else, and no one is beneath anyone else. That's powerful thought. That's what the sun does. And by the way, when a dark cloud goes in front of the sun, it doesn't say, hey, you, SOB, get out of the way. No, the sun just stays there. So the next time that someone cuts in front of us in line, or gets our promotion, or insults us, we don't say, hey, you, SOB. No. We just leave them alone and let them be. No. We'll have to stop there, unless you have a question. No, okay. You look like you wanted to ask something. And this way we get to the arati, which is such a beautiful practice. So let's sit up tall, close the eyes. We'll close out our wisdom circle. Place the right hand on the heart, the left hand over the right. And maybe this mantra has a path in it for you. As you say it, hear it coming from the heart. So hold those hands into the heart. Feel the connection. And repeat. Om.
Om.
Shanti.
Shanti.
Swarupaha.
Swarupaha.
Aham.
Aham.
Om.
Om.
Shanti.
Shanti.
Swarupaha.
Swarupaha.
Aham.
Aham.
Om.
Om.
Shanti.
Shanti.
Swarupaha.
Swarupaha.
Aham.
Aham.
I am the form of peace. Namaste. Thank you all so much for being present to our wisdom circle today. 10 minutes we'll meet on the stage for Arati.